Good morning, everybody. I got the countdown from Justin, so we're ready to rock and roll. Today we have a special class for you, selling your listing in the first 7 days. And that is just so important. And we're going to talk about all the reasons that it's important. And we are blessed today here with the man, the myth, the legend, Casey Samson.
The old guy.
The old guy. That's, if you don't know about Casey, Casey's team is probably, got to recheck the numbers, but they might be number one in all of Northern Virginia in sales so far this year in 2024. How many millions have you guys sold this year so far?
About 165,
165 million, 168 already, and we still got a whole other quarter to go.
A lot of room to go.
We're going to go over 200 million. That's the goal this year. I just
Yep.
made that his goal if it wasn't already. But Casey and his team do a fantastic job, and a lot of it is so much because of the way they prepare listings, the way they stick to their protocols and price listings. And we're really blessed today because one of the best in the industry is going to pull back those covers and show you all of his secrets and show you what's important to him, what's important to those teams. Kelly's eyes lit up when I said show you all his secrets. I think she went to a bad place.
Hey,
he's going to show you.
Old PJ Skidoo's girl over there now. Stop it.
He's going to show you all the secrets to what makes his team so successful at selling listings in a short amount of time and why that's so important. We'll talk more about. So welcome, Casey. Thanks for
sir.
coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Give us a round of applause for Casey Samson. We got a great crowd in the house today, too. And
Thanks, Donnie.
Also, we're going to jump in. Just if you're watching this live, come on down, hang out with us later. We're going to have our big cornhole party and outdoor party. The rain's hold out for us, so 12 o'clock today we'll have some food and some fun outside. But Casey,
This is the pregame for the cornhole.
yeah, that's the post game for this great class, I think, is the key.
Let's go where this all started. What happened was Donnie started producing stats for Cardinal Title. Mm-hmm. And one of the stats was how many of the homes sold in the first 7 days. Mm-hmm. I think the first one I saw was 17, which shocked me, right?
17%.
17% of the homes had sold in the first week, which really shocked me because if a home goes more than 7 days, you are at the mercy of the buyer pool. You are no longer in charge. Your sellers aren't in charge. And, we make every effort to get our sellers to price the home and prepare the home and, do the predictive analysis and do everything that we can to get that first 7 days. And, we're successful most of the time. And when we're not, when the seller won't price it right or fix it up right, it's not the seller's fault. It's our fault, my fault, for not convincing them or giving them a visual to see what could happen if you don't do it. So let me take you to a first screen here, okay?
Most of these stats generalize. That first one said 17, just so you know. Most of them are about 30, 32% every week now of things that are selling that first 7 days. And Casey's team is at 93% so far in the last couple of months and 100% in the last month, but 93% in the last couple of months. And the other 7% is just because they didn't listen to him. But as he said, he didn't do a good enough job of making them listen.
Fault.
Right.
So it's our fault if we don't convince them. So the visuals to convince a seller to do what we need them to do, this is my most powerful visual I can have, right? So first of all, this is for realtors. This is not for the sellers. I'm going to show you the sellers one in a minute. But as far as realtors are concerned, the jet stream, there's two places your listing is going to go. One into the jet stream or one into the mud. It's either going to go one or the other, right? If we do it right, we're in the jet stream, and that means it's going to be priced correctly, staged correctly. We're going to have multiple contracts. They're going to bid it up. We're not going to have inspections. The sellers are going to love us. The sellers are going to give us referrals. They're going to think we're the greatest thing since sliced bread. You build your business in the jet stream. The seller controls everything in the jet stream in the first 7 days. So, how do we stay in the jet stream and not in the mud? Because if that thing goes beyond 7 days, it goes to 10 days, 15 days, 20, 30, 40 days, you've got one buyer and you're going right in the mud. First of all, how many of us have had to sit with the seller going, why isn't the home selling? Maybe the remarks aren't correct.
Right.
Maybe you didn't do this right. Maybe you didn't do that right. Maybe you're not selling it correctly. Maybe you're not doing enough open houses.
Have you called anybody? Why isn't anybody showing my house today?
What the hell's going on?
Right.
You're in the mud, and they dragged you into you're in the mud with them.
Yeah,
right?
You said you have one buyer. You're lucky when you get that one buyer. Your life is miserable until you get that one buyer.
Until you get one
Every
buyer.
single day is a miserable day with that
They
seller.
are angry sellers. There's tons of anxiety. Their anxiety is yours. You all know what the mud is like, right? You know that a home inspector comes in. You finally get under contract. A home inspector comes in. He wants $35,000 worth of repairs done to the house. Your seller's like, I'm not paying a nickel. Now, how's that for the mud, right? So we don't get any referrals from that seller. You can write that off. We don't get any cardinal title or any vendors that we want. We get lower prices. We get pissed off sellers. So
the neighborhood's not happy with you. They don't call to sell your home next.
the neighbors say, well, your house was on the market for 45 days and my neighbor only got 1.1 million for it. It's worth 1.2 or 1.3. You must suck. Right. So we're not getting any referrals from that neighborhood. If you're in the jet stream and you put it on at the right price, you stage it correctly, and it goes on for 1.15 and you sell it for 1.3 million, the sellers are happy, the sellers are giving you referrals, you got no inspections, you got no nothing, everybody's happy and making money. You got referrals coming from neighbors and sellers and everything like that. So our goal is to convince the sellers that they want to be in the jet stream. Now, those four things are what we're going to talk about today. You've really got to understand the market
protocols
conditions.
In the middle. The protocols.
Donny and I, so you have the protocols. We only have two basic rules, right? One rule is don't break protocol.
That's not it.
And the other rule is don't forget rule number one, right? Don't forget rule number one. If you break one of these four protocols, you are going right into the mud. So we need to know the protocols. We need to convey those protocols to our sellers. And we need to be disciplined enough to not let one of these fall apart. Somebody goes, one of our people, it's like 115, that's your number. Well, I'm going to go 12. You know, screw it. Whatever. Go ahead. His fault or mine? Mine. I should have said, no. I'm telling you, we're going right into the mud. If you go to 1.2, we're going right into the mud. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do for the sellers here.
I want to stop real quick because I want to make a point about Casey. You know, when he talks about 1.5, 1.15, 1.2, and some of us are like, well,
or 5 or 6.
It's in Vienna. It's the exact same principles for 500,000 to 550,000. I just want to make that clear. Don't be like, oh, he lives in this different universe. They're the same people in the same homes. The only difference is the zip code's 1.2 instead of 600 grand.
Right.
That's the difference. Okay.
Right.
If this home were sold in a different zip code, it'd be 600, 650. So all these theories, because he sells in other neighborhoods in the same idea. Just most of his examples are in that 1.2
we price
higher range.
A lot of houses for a lot of agents at Samson Properties and teams, and it doesn't matter whether it's 500, 600, or 1.8 million dollars. It really doesn't matter. All protocols are the exact same.
Talk to me about this stat you ran.
Okay,
Casey.
so I ran this morning. I was like, well, what percentage of our listings that we took at Samson Properties went under contract without contingencies in the first 7 days? So Samson Properties, Virginia properties over 600,000. We listed $203 million in homes over 600,000. 56 million, or 28%, were under contract without contingencies the first 7 days. That means that 28% are in the jet stream. 72% are in the mud.
This is the single reason that we felt this was so important to talk about. This is
72%.
sad to look at. Right?
Now, let me give you an even weirder thing. Of that 56 million that we have under contract, 11 of it is my team.
Right.
So really, we're not at 56. The company's at 56. But the company's really at 45 out of
And when you get in that mud, it's all these unintended consequences that make this job so difficult. So the key is you can either be really strong and get all your protocol and get everything done up front and do a professional job, and you're going to have a beautiful time with the listing, or you're going to spend your whole life miserable, banging your head against the wall in this 72% of our listings that aren't getting it done in that first 7 days. So that's why these lessons are so important. And I wanted to make sure and I thank you for doing this slide, but it was so important to kind of see what the problem is and why we're trying to help fix it.
23%.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, if you take my team out, it's 23%, which is difficult for all of us. All of us in this room have taken a listing. We really need that listing. We really want that listing, and find ourselves in the mud. They won't price it right. They won't do this right. They won't do that right. It's like, gosh darn it. You know, we're making every effort. So what I'm actually going to do now is I'm going to flip through a presentation that we do. You go back.
Right, you got it. You drive there.
All right. This is literally, so I price for a lot of teams, some of the top teams, Johnny's team and Ferris's team. I price for teams, and I price for agents. And what we do is we just create a presentation. And this presentation goes to the seller. So the agent will take this to the seller with them. And we want to talk about the jet stream for the sellers because this is really, and yesterday I was in a meeting.
Oh, I didn't even notice you changed the numbers up there. Look, There's different words up this. This
There's
is the
different
seller's jet
This
stream
is different.
now.
This is
The
what I
first one's
said.
realtors.
Okay, that was for the realtors. This is for the sellers. Now, let me tell you how powerful this is. This is the most powerful screen you'll ever.
Oh, I love this.
you're ever
I didn't
gonna
even
see.
notice this before you said it. I didn't notice the words changed. This is awesome.
If we go this way, we're in the jet stream and we have highest prices, no contingencies, quick settlements, bidding wars, backup contracts. We have everything if we're in the jet stream.
Rent backs, easy walkthroughs. These are great.
Everything.
If I'm a seller, I'm like, I want all those
I want to be in
things.
the jet stream.
Right.
Okay, now we're getting the visual. So this is very important that when we send out the pricing, it's not just your home is worth $850,000. It's you're either going to be in the jet stream or you're going to be in the mud. Now, in the mud, you've got extended showing periods of time. You've got their house has always got to be ready. The buyers are in control. They're going to do home inspections. Like I said, I had 2 home inspections in the last 8 months. One wanted $37,000 and one wanted $58,000. Now you're pretty much getting it now why I don't want a home inspection, right? So we do the home inspection up front, and that's part of the protocols, part of preparing the home, and we'll go through that.
And that's if you're lucky, they'll just take money. The worst is when they want you to fix 55 things. Then you become a general contractor.
Then you got a problem.
And your seller hates
don't want
life,
money.
and you hate life. And
I want you to fix them. How do you fix that? I have no idea how to fix that.
That's
you
worse.
are a general contractor. Talk about being in the mud.
Right.
We've all been in the mud. We all get this. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to convince the seller that you don't want to go to the mud. So let's take an example. Johnny and Billy had a guy, he wants 1.2. I say it's worth 115. If I had this screen, I would have said 115 keeps you in the jet stream, 1.2 puts you in the mud. So we go to 115. Guess what? We get a contract for 115 in the first weekend. No contingencies, no nothing. Cardinal settlement, everything. It was beautiful. He countered at 1.2. To a Samson agent. It was a Samson agent that brought in the contract. He countered at 1.2. And I didn't find out about it until the Samson agent said, go pound sand, and left. It's going to sell for less than $1.1 million now. He's in the mud. Now, had I had this really clarity with him, I would have said, we got to stay out of the mud. And when that 115 comes in, I'm going, look, if you turn this down, you're going right into that mud. So, you know the expression, make them sick, make them well, right? Make them sick in the mud. Now, yesterday I was at a listing presentation. It was a $1.75 million house. And the seller literally goes, oh, we've been in the mud before. We don't want to go in the mud anymore. We want to go with you guys. We want to stay out of the mud. I literally was laughing at that. He goes, I've been in the mud. I'm not going back there. We listed with Pat Stack. Not going to have that happen again.
Jeez. I don't think
Anyways, true statement.
I don't think anybody quite caught it like I did.
Immediately, I had their attention. I said, I'm going to tell you about 4 protocols we're going to do, and we need to stick with them. If we violate any of these protocols, you're going in the mud. And they're like, whatever you say. Is that all we want to hear? Yeah. That's all we want to hear, whatever you say. So I think that we don't have to go farther than this screen right here, and you talk to Johnny G and Ferris, and they'll tell you, that's money. So all we're trying to do is create a visual that will make a seller see if you go in one direction, we're going to be in the jet stream. If you go in another direction, it's going to be in the mud. And all I have to do is say, that's going to take you into the mud. Just going to tell you. So I think that this is, when we send out a pricing for agents, this is part of this is the most important part they're going to see. So when we go here, we talk about the protocols. I'll probably reduce this screen because we've already talked about them in the last, but it's understand the market conditions. Now, markets change. Donnie's a stat guy. I'm a stat guy. Why are we such focused on where the stats are? Because the real estate market, think of it as like the ocean. The tide comes in, tide comes out. Tide comes in, tide comes out. We need to know. We need to know where the tide is. Is the tide coming in? I'm going to be, if we're in a tougher market, right? Sellers don't understand. Sellers, we've all been there. Seller goes, well, my neighbor sold for $1.35 million. My house is as good as his. I should get $1.35 million. Guess what? Market went down. We're no longer at 1.35 or 1.4. You're at 1.3, and we got to test that.
And the point I've made a bunch of times to people recently is, okay, today is September 20th or whatever it is. No, whatever, 26th. September 26th, right? And they reference their seller. Well, my neighbor got 1.35 August 15th. They closed. Right, but that contract was written in June, right? So that contract price was not 1.35, or the listed price. The listed price was probably lower, got bid up to 1.35, and they're want to take that as the gospel. That's not what the market is. First of all, that problem was listed 90 days ago, and it was listed at a home price that was lower that got all the bids that got up to that, maybe 1.25. 1.25 was the market for that home 90 days ago. That doesn't mean it's the market today. Just because somebody got excited in a bidding war and bid it up in the heat of the June market does not mean that's the September price point. And I think it's key to explain the timing of that, how that goes too, because markets change so quickly. Like
markets change. They just change. So
because of supply and demand.
Understanding the market dynamics of what is happening and what is going to happen is critical. So this chart is going to show interest rates in the blue, and it's going to show inventory in the green. So look at the interest rates go down, the inventory went up. As the interest rates went up, the inventory went down. As the interest rates went down, the inventory went up, and now I'm up to 215. They come down, interest rates go. See, you can see that they're moving in opposite directions of each other.
For those that can't see it, this starts in 2008 all the way to the left and goes year by year all the way up to 2024 at the end here. So it shows the last 16 years.
In the last month or two, interest rates have turned and gone down. Now, what's happened to inventory? It's gone up. It's following suit. Now, that's the most important thing to know is what is driving this whole thing? Interest rates. When interest rates go down, inventory actually goes up. And you would think that when interest rates go down, prices go up. No, they don't. When inventory goes up, prices go down. See, this is the most important thing that we have to explain to our sellers is the inventory is coming back, and that's going to bring prices down or soft. There's more competition out there. So in fact, we need to know where the market is today, right? Understanding the dynamics of interest rates and inventory and pricing is critical because today rates are falling, inventory is rising, and prices have come down 6 to 8%. Now, this tells the story to your seller. It tells them a couple things. One, I'm pretty damn smart about this. We're pretty smart about this. I'm telling you something you don't know. You want to really gain somebody's confidence. Tell them something they don't know. So you're telling me when interest rates go down, prices go down? That doesn't make any sense at all. They just did it. Look, inventory went down, prices went up. Interest rates went up, prices went up. In the last 2 years, interest rates went like that. Well, how did prices go like that even though interest rates went like that? Because inventory went like this. So no inventory.
As rates went up, we were still raising prices because we had so many competing offers. There wasn't enough inventory for people to buy. Today, September 26th, you guys told me, is there's 25% more listings on the market than there was a year ago at this point. 25% more inventory in DC metropolitan market. It got up as high a month ago as 40% more inventory. Some of that's gotten scooped up in the last month, but it hit a peak at about 40% more inventory year over year. So that shows you that there's a lot more inventory in the market than there was a year ago at this point.
So if we're not stat guys and we don't understand market dynamics, I'm not marketing the house at 1.35, I'm marketing at 1.4, unless I understand that. Unless you understand the market dynamics of where the market is and where it's headed.
And too many of us fall into the trap of doing this. I want the listing, it's 1.4, that's super sexy, I'm super proud of myself. Seller wants 1.4, let's go, 1.4, I got a $1.4 million listing, look at me. You're setting yourselves up to fail.
You're going in the mud. You're going in the mud. I'm going to tell you, we only have, we got a couple sayings in my team. I don't want to say, I only got one saying. I got plenty of sayings.
You got a few sayings.
But one of them is the best listing I ever took is the one I didn't take. Somebody's just going to drag you right into the mud. I'm not going with you.
You'll be there 90 days when they need a second realtor.
So again,
they've been in the mud for 90 days with somebody else.
And that's when I get the phone call. The agent from Samson, and I get 10, 15 a month. can you help me? And I could clearly see you're in the mud. And I'm not going in there with you, you know? And so if an agent needs help, they come before they list the house. They do it this way and do it properly and stay in the jet stream. That's where the money is. So I keep telling the agents, come to me before you list, not after you list. Because once we're in the mud, baby, we're in the mud. So again, let me go back to this dynamics. Now the sellers understand that we have our hands around the market and they understand the dynamics. And all the other group is saying is how great Compass is. We're trying to educate you on the market, right? I can say that.
Yes.
Can I say that? Okay.
You go for it, baby.
I don't get in any trouble.
Shoot your shots, baby.
But anyways, Donnie was saying inventory, and again, I think we're made out of the same cloth here.
I didn't even look at his numbers first.
You didn't. In Vienna, so if this is a Vienna listing, this goes with it. If it's a Haymarket, I've got one of these for Haymarket. So inventory versus last year, we're up 42% in Vienna right now.
There you go.
In the last 30 days. Year to date versus 203, we're down. So that's not good, right?
Right.
So what I'm trying to say is you can see the inventory chart over there on the right. You see how it goes down. See how low it went? I mean, we were at 81.78, then we went to 37. Now we're at 61. So basically, a seller has a decision to make.
That's that chart on the right with the cones.
Right. So we have a chart on this for Vienna. And basically, we know the dynamics. And what does every seller say? Is it better to sell in the spring or is it better to sell now? Right? Well, as inventory comes up, prices go down. So I don't know. All I know is this. Inventory is going up. And we're at a peak price. So now is probably, from a business standpoint, you got to consider your personal stuff. From a business standpoint, it is better to sell it now while we're at a peak, right? So this is all important stuff that we use. So let's get to the pricing itself, right? So now they understand. Now they understand the dynamics of the market. Now we go to pricing, right? Now what Donnie always says is, well, first thing, let me do this. When we walk into a listing, they've already seen what their house has said on Zillow, right? So on this, we can say, well,
do you pull these and show them?
Yes.
Okay.
This is the first thing I show them. I said, well, let's see what everybody else thinks.
Because what everybody will do, right, if you're a seller, and look, we'll all probably do the same thing, right, is we might look at all these websites, and we're going to say whichever one's the highest one in our minds, that's when we'll be like, whoa, I'm going to tell Casey that Zillow said 1.49, right? You may have looked at the other four that were a lot lower, right? But you want to take with you the highest one. So you show them this.
What I'm trying to do is discredit what they've seen online.
Right.
What you've seen online is an algorithm that's a national algorithm that has nothing to do with reality. I mean, it can give you a ballpark, but look, one of them says 1.393, one of them says 1.493. Well, which one is it?
It's a big difference.
I can't miss by $50,000. I
Right.
can't miss by $25,000. I've got to be on the number, right? So this is where Donnie and I, where we talk about this. I say the house worth 104 or 1.4.
Right.
Okay? Now, if you look at this, Donnie and I agree that you have to look at what the list price was of the homes that sold.
Yep.
But I'm going further than that now because we're in a declining market. I'm looking at, see that number where it says pending down there? So let me go over
Pending's
this with you
the
real
green
quick.
in the middle there.
This is the come to Jesus screen that they look at, okay? Now, I can't tell you what your house is worth. I can't tell you, right? I can tell you what the customary value of a home that's 3,000 square feet that was built in 2000, I can tell you what that's worth within 1 mile. That's sold in the last 90 days. I can tell you what the customary value is. But I don't know your upgrades. I don't know your lot. I don't know the flow of your house. I don't know your condition. Do you have current paint, old paint? Is it dated? Is it traditional? Is it transitional? I don't know that. I can tell you that we start the base point, right? You do a concussion test, you do a concussion baseline, and that is, what is the baseline, right? What is your baseline? So the baseline here is $1.4 million. Could be one. Now, let me stop here for a second.
So you hit that concussion line.
I know.
The non-football coaches in the world out there, every player in high school sport, any sport, right? They do a concussion baseline at the beginning of the year. They're like, okay, this is what you are Normal, in theory, right? Now when you've gotten your bell rung later, they'll be like, now we test you now.
When you think your name is Mary, you failed the baseline test.
Sometimes I'll look at the trader and I'll be like, he wasn't that smart to begin with.
Yeah,
And they'll be like, no, we know how dumb he was to begin with. We tested him at the beginning.
Right.
So,
all right, so let's
I just
get
wanted
back.
to clarify that concussion test rule. So
let's
customer is your baseline.
Let me be clear on this. That is the average.
Right.
Just the average for a house of that age, that size, and that location for that time. Now, if you're updated and your condition is really good, we could go to 1.5. If your home is dated and looks bad and you don't do anything, it could go all the way down to 1.29.
That's those top numbers there where it says
Right.
value on the top section of your chart here.
So this is the first thing I want to draw their attention to. Average is 1.4. Really could go to 1.5. We've got that before. Could go down to 1.3 if we do it wrong. So what we're trying to do with the seller is say the difference between being in the jet stream and the mud is $200,000. Now I can tell you, I can prove that on every listing I do, that it's 200 grand. But the worst and the best. You go in, you get in the mud, you do a home inspection, it kicks out. Oh shit, now I got to relist it, I got to get it back on the value. Trust me, it's a $200,000 swing. So when I'm with the seller, I'm like, we have $200,000 at risk. Do you want to trust this with your friend or your neighbor or somebody that does one deal a year? Or do you want to have a professional handle this transaction? And then it's all, hey man, put the swords down, let's go.
And look,
Let's get in the jet stream.
Casey's obviously super charismatic and a big Marine and all those things, right? But it's the confidence that he displays that message with that we can all have. If you get to that confidence level, it's not just that he's super successful and big and tough and all. It's because he displays the message with confidence and believes in what he's saying. So we all can get to that point.
We live this stuff, right? We live this stuff. This presentation that we send out, and literally I'm just going through my listing presentation with you, is all thought out about how we're trying to guide the seller to the place they need to be in order to keep them in the jet stream. So they think their house is worth 1.5. It could be. That's not where we're going to list it at, but it could be. I mean, literally this house could sell for 1.5 million, but that's not where the buyer pool is. That is not where the buyer pool is. So this is clearly demonstrating that homes of your age, your size, your assessment are under contract right now. The successful ones are going under contract at 135. Not 1.4, but 135. So we need to start thinking, and again, Donnie is saying, don't look at what the sales price was, look at what they listed it for, because that's where the buyer pool is. What I'm saying is I go beyond that now, and we need to look at where are the homes under contract. And if you and I compare age and size and go up and down and said, so our house would have to be listed at 1.344 in order to be as successful as the ones that are pending under contract. So really, it's not 1.4. The buyer pool currently is at 135, or in your case, 1.8 or 600 or 475 or whatever the number is. And again, we do these for everybody, so it doesn't.
It's not just because they're high numbers.
It's just
it's all based on the recent ones around.
Exactly right.
But the formula is still the same.
Right. And so we take it a little bit further, and I don't want to get into too much of this, but I look at your house, what was it worth in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024? Does that growth, does that jive with the rest of the market? Haymarket, Vienna, McLean, does that jive? Yeah, it does. 42% up. Yeah, that's about right. 32%. Yeah, that's about right. So I know I'm on the number, and I can go in with confidence, and you guys can go in with confidence and say, hey, we really got to be at 1.344, because I give the recommendation. If we want to stay in the jet stream, it's 1.344. That's what we need to test, and we're going to get to that in a minute. The reason why I look at what your house was worth over the period of time is I can show this. The blue line, this is a chart with two lines. One is blue and one is red. The blue line is what would your house be worth if it grew at the rate of inflation? Because remember, real estate is just a hedge against inflation. So we're looking at the blue line, so your house should be worth 1.1. And it got up to 1.4. Right now, the contracts are at 1.344. This is consistent with the rest of the market, because I do 100 of these. This is consistent with what we're seeing. So the seller says, I'm not happy with 135. I'm like, Well, if you don't like 135, you're going to hate 1.2. You're going to hate it. I mean, if you don't like this, you're not going to like what's coming, right? Because if, in fact, rates come down, and they are, and inventory comes up, which it has to. I mean, did you see that chart? Watch this. Look at the inventory. We're back to our inventory chart in Vienna, where in the 30-day period, it used to be 78 to 80 homes came on the market.
That's that chart on the right there.
Chart on the right. But in the last 2 or 3 years, it's 37, 45, 61.
It's got to get back to the 70s.
It's coming back in the 70s
if
and 80s.
not more than that, because of some of the pent-up stuff that didn't come out over the last 3 years.
Everybody's got to sell. They just didn't want to. They had to. The only people that were selling, people that are getting a divorce, somebody died, or they had to downsize. Those are the reasons. And after that, there weren't any want-tos.
There's another D, diapers.
There weren't any diapers. No, that's a buyer.
Right.
That's buyer. And that's the exact opposite. That's births,
right.
marriages, and all that other stuff. But the reason they sell is divorce, death, and downsizing. So let me go back to this and show you that, again, if you don't like 135, you're going to hate 125. You're just going to hate it. And this is a reason why we can't miss. We actually have a declining asset. For the first time in years, we have a declining asset. So we need to be thoughtful about this. So at this point, you normally have two sellers, politically correct, two sellers, right? One of them is thinking what you're thinking, and the other is thinking unreasonably. All I'm doing is just making the case for the reasonable seller that knows this is the way we got to do it. And show the person that's thinking of going higher that that's going to put you in the mud, and we don't want that. I've already showed you that. So this is really a come to Jesus that we're really $200,000 over where we should be based on low inventory. So in here, this chart is something that we produce, and this shows them there's 5 homes that are closed. That's your comparables. There's 5 homes that are active, and there's only 1 home that's pending without any contingencies, and they were on the market for 21 days. So we analyze what the market conditions are at the time. I mean, wouldn't we price it differently if there was 10 competitors?
I'm going to stop real quick. So for you, when you create this chart, do you pull the stuff from Bright and put it into like an Excel spreadsheet? Is that kind of your jam?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
You just
So
line
all I
those
say,
up. Because everybody uses all these different things for CMAs. I just want to show you what Casey uses.
Right. So this is a hand-built, and so you can see up
You're
on top.
pulling out the key numbers on each one and put them in there.
So the criteria are the sizes between 2,600 and 3,900 square feet. The age is between 1991 and 2011. The price range is everything between 1.35 and 1.65. And the success rate right now of that house was 29%.
Now stop real quick. What's the success rate? I know, but
the success rate is if there are 7 houses on the market, 5 are active, 2 are under contract. The success rate is what percentage is under contract. Right. What percentage had a success?
Right.
Well, in my book, 0. 0.
Because the 2 under contract were more than 7 days.
Right. Right. I'll look at them and go 0. Your success rate of the agents that are currently trying to sell houses in your region are 0.
Well, that one's active on 6 days. So they have 1 day to become a success.
Okay, they got 1 day. The clock is ticking. But I guess the bottom line is look at the days on market: 70, 39, 70, 26, 14, and 21. Those are the days on market. Are any of those successful?
No.
None.
And the problem is most sellers will want to price their homes against the ones that aren't succeeding right now.
Right.
Right?
So
It
again,
doesn't matter what they list for. They've been
is-
sold for crap. They can
is-
list the home for whatever they want to list it for.
it is our job to make sure we get the number where it's supposed to be. So if I'm looking at this saying, I have a weak market, I have declining prices, I've got a lot of competition, right? Where are we going to be? We really got to be careful here. So I can't get aggressive with that price. So we're always at 2 numbers. In this case, you can see we're at 135 and 14. Those are the kind of the 2 numbers I'm between. So my goal is to make sure we figure out, is it 14 or 135? You've got to list at 135.
I'm going to stop one quick because I want more point of clarification here because I know you do these charts a lot, and I don't want to dig into every single number, but you're big on price compared to assessment, and that's that number on the right there. That's 123%, 112%, 125% of the ones that sold, and then below you show the percentage that those properties are now listed at compared to their assessment. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
That's kind of a key indicator for him is what is this market going at? They're all selling for 110% of assessment, 112% of assessment, and if somebody's at 140, 142, 125, they're too high, right? So that's
here's
a key.
the point.
It's a key indicator for you.
It's a big indicator, and let's just stop for a second. Remember, I said there's a delta of 200,000 between the best contract and the worst.
Yep.
One sold for 102% of assessment. One sold for 125. That's a 23% spread. 23% of $1.3 million is about 200 and I'm sorry, it's almost $300,000.
Right.
See, I'm not messing around. I mean, I'm telling you, there's $200,000 to $300,000 at stake between the seller at Berry Lane,
Yep.
Berryland,
third
or
one
whatever,
down and the fourth one down,
and Hayden. They had a difference of $300,000 in what one got versus what the other one got.
Well, they got the same number as closed price,
right?
But one of them's 1,100 square feet bigger than the other.
That's exactly right.
That's crazy.
Exactly right.
Right.
So anyways, again, I'm not trying to scare anybody. It's my job to make sure we get this thing at 135. This is a pretty sophisticated spreadsheet because when you guys, right now, commissions are variable.
Sure.
Some contracts come in at 2, 2.5, 1, and all that. So what I tell the sellers is the top one is the price that is coming in from a contract. The next is the buyer commission. And then you'll see all of the taxes and fees and all the rest of that stuff. Admin fee, I got to change that to $399. And
it's now $395, everybody, not $345.
Sorry about that. Dated.
I have messed up once in a lunch and learn.
So I will update that. But again, I want to give the seller the confidence that as contracts come in, we're going to analyze them and we're going to go off the bottom number. Whatever the top number is, minus the commission, plus all the fees, your bottom number, walk out the door, is 1.347 versus the first contract at 1.226. So I want them to know that as contracts are flying in, we're analyzing these on the fly, okay? And all of our agents have this, so they just plug in the number on top, the commission, and it just shoots it down, and they'll put maybe the buyer name or the agent name up there. So when we send it to the seller, we're sending them this document. So I want them to know, because they're also interviewing other agents, that when contracts come flying in, I'm analyzing it on the fly.
Right.
And you're going to make sure we're focused on the bottom number. We don't want to, we don't want to walk away from any money.
No.
Right?
What are you going to put in those bottom two? What would you value a home inspection and appraisal potentially?
Oh,
at,
God,
typically?
no. I don't want to. If there's a home
you don't want to
inspection
value
check,
them in,
I don't want to have anything to do with it. As I said, I've only had 2. One was 37, one was 58. I don't want a home inspection on my house.
So generally, I would almost go one step further and say if you end up at the 129 number, you're gonna get double burned because you've now missed the market.
Smoked.
You're gonna get smoked on the. They're gonna have inspections and appraisals on top of that. It's gonna make it even worse, probably, right?
It's going to be horrible. It's really going to be horrible.
He's like getting sad thinking about it.
Scares me. Now, here's the big one. Condition really does count. And I look at the seller and I say, I'm 67 years old. I don't want you painting your house. And I know you don't want to paint your house. But we got to paint the house. Because you know who really doesn't want to paint the house? The buyer. Buyer doesn't want to paint that house. So the difference between the house, the picture on top and the picture on bottom is $125,000, and it costs us $8,500 to fix the house up. And I could tell you, clearly we made $125,000 on that. So what are we looking at? Just really simple. When we come in, we're looking at just cosmetics, no new kitchens, no new bathrooms, just cosmetics. The paint, the hardware on the doors, which means, they've got gold. We go in and the house was built, it's got gold or brass hardware. You got to swap that out for black or oil rub bronze or brushed nickel or whatever is appropriate for that age and size house. So you need current paint. You need updated hardware. And I keep having flashbacks on this because I'm going to just tell you a story. I was sitting in one house. It was 6,600 square feet, above grade. I really wanted this listing. I really wanted this listing.
That's a big
And
boy.
I got Morgan with me, and my daughters and son-in-law and my nephew. Man, they won't launch a listing unless the listing looks correct, right? And I'm looking at the walls, and they're like yellow. They're a little yellow, but it's a nice yellow. You know,
You're
I'm
telling yourself
67.
you're telling yourself it's a
I'm
nice
literally
yellow.
at a listing appointment going, please, Morgan, don't say anything. Please don't say anything. Please don't say anything. She goes, well, we're definitely going to paint the house. And I'm like, oh, I really wanted this listing. And it's 67. I mean, with sky, you know, the ceilings are up. Jesus, Morgan. Holy shit. Really? Do we have to paint this house? And the seller's getting sick and throwing up. I'm getting sick and throwing up. I'm like, geez. Morgan took her phone and went like this. She goes, let me show you something. That's what your house looks like on film. And I went, oh, shit. I'm like, we got to paint this house. So again, when we think about this, this is an effort on the part of the realtor that we don't want to do, but we have to do it. Thank God I've got daughters and a son-in-law and a nephew that force us into this.
And I'm going to tell you, too, because I sold actively for years before I got in management here. That was the single hardest thing for me to do as a listing agent, was to be real about the condition of people's property. And the one thing that I would flip my head on, it's not that I wouldn't live here fine and you wouldn't live here fine. Your house is beautiful. But right now, it's your single biggest asset.
Yeah.
You have to look at it that way.
Yeah.
The best way to get the most out of your asset is we have to fix it up.
Put some lipstick.
It's not that it's not a beautiful home. It's that the best way to maximize your asset here is to fix it up and do these certain things. And you're going to get it's not your home anymore. It's your biggest asset. You have to look at it that way.
The most important thing is like, look, you're not the buyer. I'm not your buyer. She's your buyer.
Right.
Morgan's got
I think he
two
just called me a
kids. She's
girl.
looking for a $1 million
He means
house.
Morgan, not she, me. Gotcha.
I went that way. She's your buyer. So I'm like, whatever Morgan says to do, or Kelly, or Billy, or Colby, do it. I'm just telling you, do it. For every dollar you spend, we're getting back $7 to $10. And I can show you 100 examples of it. This is one example that I got 100 of them like this. Declutter, call in Billy Thompson, and he'll work on decluttering and storing and packing and all that stuff. Get the declutter out, paint it, make sure it's got current paint, update the hardware, and the key lighting fixtures, like you see this picture, that lighting fixture up top, that is a traditional old lighting fixture. Down on the bottom is a cage, that is 2024. So it's these key lighting fixtures, it's the paint, it's the hardware, and that's it. And guess what? I tell the seller, you're not going to do it. I got a guy. We've got a guy to do that. So we've got people that will paint it and do all this stuff. But we've got to do it because nowhere in America can you go in and bet $10,000 and get back $125,000. And if you lose, you only get back like 50. But if you win, you get 125. Las Vegas does not have a gambling game where you can do that. But you can do it with your house when you sell it.
And the big thing is, it's not even just because would maybe one person fall in love with that top home? Maybe. But if 3 or 4 or 5 fall in love with the bottom home, that's where you get the 50, 100 grand for the 10 grand in effort. It's because you're going to get multiple people now to fall in love with their home, not just the one.
If you went and launched that listing on top, where are you going to end up?
The mud.
In the
Everybody's
mud.
supposed to say that first.
Right? See that home on the bottom? That's Jetstream. We're going to stay in the Jetstream. This is extremely important. I think we talked about this. Where did we meet when I talked about the home inspection with you?
HQDU.
Here?
No, I forget where it was.
Fredericksburg. Maybe
Fredericksburg, HQDU, maybe.
So this is extremely important. When preparing the home, you must do a home inspection. Now, before I recommend it, now I insist, right? Because if you do 88 in a row and you don't have a home inspection on any of them, and we clear through with no problem, and then a couple say, no, I'm not going to do it, and both of them have home inspections. Let's be clear on this. You as a realtor are going to put a home inspection request in every contract. You have to. Due diligence. What happens if there's something wrong with the house and you didn't, as a realtor, as a professional realtor, you didn't recommend a home inspection? Are we liable for that? Yeah, I would be. I'd sue the hell out of a realtor if they didn't get me that. But what if we had a home inspection that was 100 pages big, that went through the whole house from a reputable licensed contractor, and there's 6 contracts out there. I've got 6 contracts and a home inspection report. If you remove the home inspection, then we'll consider your contract. They all remove the home inspection. All of them. If they want to compete, they will all remove that home inspection. The 2 that didn't, like I said, one was $37,000 and one was $57,000.
So when you do this home inspection, and that's powerful information, right? Because a lot of us don't probably do this. The fear factor is I do the inspection, and they come back with
Got to fix it.
20 things wrong.
Got to fix it. If my name's going to be on it, it's not going to have.
So do you fix everything in there, or what do you fix?
Well, no, and again, there's a big difference between a seller's
Your home inspector's doing more of an.
Correct.
They're not digging into every little.
I need a roof. I need to know if the roof is in good shape, how old it is,
Gotcha.
HVACs, need ages. I need to know, is the HVAC working? I don't need to know how old it is. It working? Good working condition? Got it. Now, the way my guy's going to say it is it's in good working condition. The way their guy's going to say it is at or past its useful life, need to be replaced within the next 2 years. How do you know it needs to be replaced? It's working. Well, it's 18 years old. I don't give a shit. They can live to 30. It's in good working condition. So basically, I'm going to buy some protection. I'm going to spend, they're going to spend, the seller's going to spend $500, $600. We're going to get inspected. These are the deal killers. HVAC, electrical. Is it going to catch fire?
Right.
Are there any electrical problems?
Not
Is everything
fix
to
every
code?
GFCI outlet that doesn't trip anymore.
Right.
Not that.
Right.
Right.
The plumbing. Are we leaking? Anything leaking in here? Do we have any problems? You know, you're looking for. Go down the foundation. Do I have any big
anything leaking in here?
Anything leaking in here? Look, a deal killer is moisture, right? If there's water, we got a problem because that's mold. So yeah, plumbers are there, foundation is there, moisture, mold. We want to make sure everything is clear because if my name's going on the house, it's going to be in good shape because realtors need to trust. And here's the key. If realtors looking at a house, they go and they look at our house, they're like, I know it's been inspected. I know it's priced right. I'm going to have to compete for it, but I know it's priced right. And I know that we're going to help the agents out with saying, here's what it could be worth. Could be worth 1.5. I know we're at 135, but it could go as high as 1.5 because of its condition and its upgrades. So here's my pricing model. I literally give that pricing model to the agents. And here's the home inspection. So, you know, we just want to make sure that I can give them the confidence that you can pull out the home inspection because your buyer really wants it. You can pull it out and you're safe and I'm safe and everybody's safe. If you're going to buy my house, it's got to be up to code. There's got to be no violations in any of this. And if a seller says, oh, I'm not going to do that, then I'm not going to list your house. It's my reputation, right? Everybody works on their reputation. So literally, and they respect that. And I tell them, if my name's on your house and all those realtors know it's priced right, it's fixed up, it's got the right paint, it's a turnkey operation, you got a home inspection already done, so we don't have to spend money on that. I'm going to put a contract with confidence in on that house, and the seller will respect that.
The key to me in the whole thing is not only, like you say, your reputation, you're putting it out the right way, is that there's 2 very different spins on what that inspection looks like, and that's what you're paying for as the seller, right? Is that everybody's been through the buyer inspection that we get over as the seller, like you've described here, the 2 horror stories, but they're going to find every nook and cranny, and they're going to spin that terribly to that buyer.
$37,000 worth.
Or you're going to have a seller inspection that's done by a professional that looks good, but the spin is differently, right? And then whatever they have fixed that needs to be fixed major-wise, you've done, and you've shown that you've gotten that fixed. So there's a different spin. 2 inspectors can look at the same house and come back with very different results based on who their client is. And I think that's the play to that seller as to why it's so important to do that now. And the $500 or $600 now is going to save you thousands down the road.
How many of you have had a home go under contract, had a home inspection, and come back on the market after the home inspection blew up? How many? Nobody?
If you haven't,
a lot. If you're not done it, you're not in the business. You're not doing a lot of business because let me tell you something. I have. And when that happens, forget it. You can just write off $100,000 just like that. What? You failed your home inspection? Oh, that's not good. That's bad. So early on, that tripped up is like, no, we're going to do it the right way. So part of preparing the home.
You've done it on the last 37 listings,
Absolutely.
it looks like down there?
Well, Julie's late on that. She put that in to make it look cool, but it's really like 80 or 90 or something like that. There's only been three homes that didn't do the inspection, and all 3 got inspected.
And 2 of them have been scarred because we've
Scarred
heard
for
several
life.
stories about them already today.
I'm talking about them a lot, man. All right,
Oh, it's a big one.
here's the big one.
I love this.
Now, let me tell you something. I can double everybody's 7-day. So Samson Properties, we had 40 if you take ours out. We had 40 out of 190 sell in the first 7 days. I can double that number like that.
On just
Probably
this.
triple it of what percentage of those homes go under in 7 days by just this thing right here. Agent calls me up. I got a problem. Okay, what's the price? No. Okay. It's not selling. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I said, did you do a predictive analysis prior to launching this listing? No. I dedicate my life to pricing houses. I'm really solid on pricing. If I didn't do a predictive analysis, half of the homes I list would sit and not sell. If I didn't do this.
That's a big thing he just said, because you see how much work he puts in on the front end before we even got here, and he would still tell you that half of his would go off wrong until he tests the market.
I think the market is at 1.4 million. It's not there. We got to get to 135. So this house, and again, I've got 100 of these too that I could show you. This is what Julie selected. It was 185. I think the house is worth 1.9 million. I think we're going to get 1.9 million for the house. So I said, but I think the buyer pool is at 185. That's what all my numbers say, 185. Let's test 185. Nobody was coming. We had 0 showings at 185.
So what does predictive analysis mean? Because I know what the word means, but when you say this, you put it on the market as coming soon listing for how long typically?
7 days.
7 days. So he puts it on coming soon for 7 days, and to me that's non-negotiable.
No.
Because I've been convinced that this is the way I would do it. It is a protocol. We don't break protocol because this test in the market is so important to make sure that we launch correctly. So you put it on coming soon for 7 days, and during that 7-day period, you've done the coming soon list price at 1.85.
Right.
What are the things you're looking at 6 days from now when you meet with that seller?
How many
before
people
you go
are coming
live?
to see the house?
And you can test that through the showing time.
time.
How many people have set up
How
showings?
many people have registered? You got 1 register? You're wrong. You're in deep trouble.
And you can also look at how many people have favored it in Bright.
So in the hit counter, you can look at the hit counter, and that'll tell you how big your buyer pool is. So the first one is how many emails went out. The second one is how many opened it. Well, the number that they opened it, that's your buyer pool. So if only 70 people opened it, that's not enough people. We need at least 150 people in the buyer pool. So I can look at the seller, and trust me, Wednesdays for me suck. Because I got to go, hey, man, we got 70 people in this buyer pool. We only have 1 favorite. We are nowhere near enough to launch this listing. We got to drop it to 50,000. Now, every seller's disappointed, this seller included. So we don't have any showings.
But now you have data. It's not just you sticking the tail being like, I think you should go to 1.8. Right? You've tried 1.85. You've done the 7-day test. 1 person's favored it, and 1 person set up a showing. How is that listing going to possibly be successful this weekend?
Right. So we set expectations early that we're going to test the number at 185, because you know what? That's where you want it. You want it at 185. Now, how many of us get to a point where it's like, I think it's worth 800, and the seller's kind of hopes that it's 850, and an agent walks in and goes, I'll get you 850, and they go with that agent over you. That happens, and it happens a lot, right? Flip it. We'll test 850, but unless we get 5 showings or 7 showings or 8 showings, unless we have 4 people to 6 people favoring this house, if we got nobody coming on showings or nobody, we got to go to 800. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. But I want to set expectations. If we get less than 6, we're going down. Okay, that's good. But let's test it, right? Yep, we're going to test it. And this is exactly what happened. So in this case, that seller, I told him it's worth 1.9. I'm expecting 1.9. I think the buyer pool is at 1.85. Not there. We got to go to 1.799. You said it's worth 1.9. And I said, I did, and I still think it is. And I still think we go over 1.9. But the buyer pool is not at 1.85. It's at 1.8. So we go out at 1.8, we get $2 million. I'm telling you, I've got 100 of these stories. So I set expectations that
Because
unless
competition
we get,
does crazy stuff to people, right?
Right.
Get more people involved,
Well,
pushes it up every time.
I'll get to the next one. I don't know if I've got this included in this. Nope. The contracts are important, and again, we've argued about this a lot, but I will not allow an escalation clause when you put a contract in on any of our houses. And I tell the seller that. And this is a perfect example. Maybe this is why Julie selected this. Because we got contracts in at 1.85, 1.865, and $2 million. Now, if I was allowing escalation clauses, the seller would have got 1.865 plus
10 grand or something.
whatever the escalation is. So I made this seller $125,000 minimum because I required highest and best offers, not that. And again, we got stories where a person will bring in a contract at 1.4, and I'll say, yeah, I'll feel them out. They're my only contract. They're all I got. And I'm like, you really want this house. I could tell they really want the house, and they're really anxious, and they're anxious. So I'm like, I'm going to need your highest and best offer by tomorrow at noon. And within 20 minutes, they came back and said, I'll tell you what it'll do. Will 155 get this house with no home inspection? And I'm like, let me see if I can get that through with the sellers. So they bid $150,000 over themselves.
Do you feel like a little bit bad?
No, I don't. My job
is to get the highest and best price for the seller.
I'm a football coach.
My job,
He's a football coach.
My job is to
We like to win. We like to win big. We don't want to win by 3 points. We want to win by 40 points. I'm hired. We want to cover the spread. I'm hired by the seller to get the highest number.
So what he does is
I sleep well at night.
The highest and best offer is what he'll tell people. Is like, I want everybody's highest and best offers. And typically, if you've got multiples, you set a timeline.
Yeah.
Is that typically your
Yeah.
protocol?
Mm-hmm.
So
Monday at noon.
And more times than not, somebody's going to, now, will it scare a buyer or two away or make them, probably, right? Because I know some of you out there and buyers are like, but in escalation, I know I only overpaid by 5 or 10 or whatever, or I only beat the next boss. I understand. But he's got enough proof that shows if 3 or 4 people really like this house, somebody's going to shoot for it, right? Somebody's not walking away and not getting that house. And sometimes they'll overbid by 20, 50, 150 grand in these circumstances. So
things happen.
And even if it's an $800,000 house, they might overbid by 10, 20, 30 grand. Because you know what they don't want to do? Get back in the car and look for another one they like more. And at the end of the day, that 10 or 20 grand might not be a big deal on a mortgage payment, right? They want that house and they don't want to lose. And that's the house they want to move their family into.
So here's what I tell sellers. When people are looking at your house and they're bringing in contracts, we're just dating. But if we sign off on a contract with them, we're married. Now, I want to make sure whoever I marry is going to stick around and not leave. You know what I mean? We're getting married. Because if we break up, this is going to end poorly. So if you're willing to walk away because I'm requiring a certain thing, then you really don't love this house anyways. Well, you either take this contract or we're walking. Then you're not the person we want. And guess what? They're coming back on Monday by noon with a higher offer. So if somebody threatens you...
You play a lot of games of chicken. But you've got what they want, so you win the game of chicken more times than not. And but your point is, if they really don't want it, then they're going to find another reason to get out at some point, right? You either really want the house or you don't want the house.
It is it's a calculated risk.
Yeah. No.
So let me give you the example.
I'm mostly
Let's
joking.
go back to the 1.4 and 1.55. So we follow a guy named Chris Voss. He's a hostage negotiator from the FBI. He teaches business people how to negotiate. And one of the things he teaches is how to mirror. So if somebody says a word, if you say a word, I'll say, like you'll say anxious. I'll say anxious, and you'll expand on that. So the agent calls me up on the 1.4, and she goes, well, what's the word? My buyer is anxious. And I'm sitting here going, do I just take the 1.4 or do I push her? You know, because if I push her and she walks, I've got nothing else. So, anxious? And she goes, oh, yes, they've lost 5 contracts and they love this house and don't want to lose it. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to need your highest and best offer Monday at noon. And that's, sip. And when I tell that story to a seller, they're like, I want that guy negotiating contracts for me, right? So it's a calculated risk, but I still, and so between Ferris and Johnny and all these guys, they're doing, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of stuff. And I said, have any of you regretted, like a person will come in with a contract, it happens every week. You either take this $850,000 or we're walking. Have any of you ever regretted not taking a Friday or Saturday contract that's threatened to walk? Anybody? Because you do 5 a weekend. Nobody. Nobody said anything. I said, so none of you have regretted that? No. So you know what my opinion is? Screw it. If that's the way you want to be, you're just trying to pressure the seller. We are the ones that are pressuring the buyers, not them pressuring us. Now, once it's gone beyond 7 days,
he doesn't get to play all these games on day 21.
I don't like losing control.
That first weekend, we have all the control.
You can take the contract at this price, and you will take our home inspection, and that's all there is to it. I don't like that, right? So I like to be the dictator, not the dictatee. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that a word?
No,
I don't even know.
Not really, but we'll go with it. I think we know what you meant.
Anyways, we want to have control. The whole purpose for what this is, this screen, this one screen, when explained to the seller, is very powerful. And if realtors at Samson Properties just did the predictive analysis correctly and set expectations, then our under contract in 7 days would go from 23% or 22% to over 50% with one change. Now, for those of you that have problems, yes, agents will call us up and go, can you price this out? We do. We do this whole thing for agents, and we price it for a lot of them. We do $200 a pop. You can put it on a credit card with Donny, and you get that presentation, and that goes to your seller.
Sarah, we have to be able to add that feature.
Yeah. He'll add that feature. But again, if you have a problem and you want that before your thing, then you just there'll be certain stuff you got to do. You just send us the tax record like that. Send us the tax record and authorize it. And then, we do the whole listing presentation for you with all that stuff. But, you have to have first of all, if the number is a big number and it's a problem, that's a problem, because when we list a house, there's $40,000 at stake. When people list an $800,000 house, it's 2.5% on $800,000. That's $20,000. We got $20,000 at stake. And if 72% of the people are in the mud or 78% of the people are in the mud, that's a problem. You got to stay out of the mud, period. So if you watch this and you can do this, if you want the quickest, easiest way, make sure you do the predictive analysis. If you want to do it, all of it, we can do that too. But I think that it's critical that Samson Properties as a company gets homes under contract within the first 7 days. It's critical for you as an agent to be able to have control. It's critical for our sellers and the referrals they're going to spend to us. It's critical that they get their house done in the first 7 days. That's why I called Donny and said we need to have a talk. And that's why we're here. So I hope this helps. I think it's very important. I wouldn't have asked Donny to do this, and if I didn't think it would help if you just did 1 or 2 of these things that help you stay in the jet stream and keep everybody out of the mud.
It's super valuable, guys. And I know that, Casey's a force of will, right? And you can tell that if you were his sellers, all of you guys today, you'd be like, I'm in, whatever he says, right? And maybe that's intimidating to be like, I can't be like Casey. You can be closer to Casey. The protocols and the steps are super smart, but they're implementable by everybody. Just the predictive analysis part, like the end, like you said there, it's super important. And I think that your career will be so much happier and more successful if you can get to that jet stream more times than not. And yes, does it take being tougher at the listing table? Not tougher, but have a stronger will at the listing table and more conviction and better research up front and a better plan up front. It takes all those things, and you need to show these things in the graphic he's about to show you. But if you show them that we can have a beautiful relationship in the jet stream, or we can spend months in the mud and struggle through this, winning that initial conversation and convincing them that this is the best way to go is going to make your life so much happier. If not, you're going to regret every single day you have that listing. Except the day you walk out, you go, I got this new $1.4 million listing. but it's going to be 90 days of misery. Or you can walk out and say, I've got this great listing. They've listened to me. They're going to predictive analysis at 1.3, and we're going to see how it goes there. Maybe it's 1.25, maybe it's 1.3. You're going to have a successful sale, 1.35 or 1.4, because you've done the steps the correct way.
We haven't. We only have so much time, energy, and money. And for some of you, thumb are more important than others. But if you get in the mud, you're losing a lot of time. For me, it's a lot of energy. I just don't have that much energy. I got to take a nap. I mean, if I get stuck in the mud with somebody, I got to go take a nap. I feel.
Let's be clear. You're taking a nap either way.
I take a nap anyways. Don't worry about it. Good or bad, contract, no contract, I don't give a shit. I need a nap. But anyways, and money. You spend a lot of money on these listings, and we don't want to lose that. But I think it's more about reputation. If we just change the terminology with our sellers and said we can either go in the jet stream or the mud. And as soon as they say, I want to do this, it's like, my concern is that puts us right in the mud. And that's a bad place, right? I'm not saying I'm trying to scare anybody. I'm just saying if our terminology was, we can either go to the jet stream or we go to the mud. And all I'm trying to do is use those 4 protocols to keep us out of the mud. And then I think you close more deals.
We got a couple minutes here. I think we've got all of our great data. I'm curious if we have any questions, and this is always a slippery slope. I'm sure we do. Zach's going to run out of mic. Make sure you wait for that microphone so that we can get this on camera for all the people waiting at home. And I'm so confident Casey can answer all these effectively. I'm doing the cardinal sin, is opening up for questions and seeing how we get out of it. Yes, sir.
This is great, and I stole some screenshots. Are these printouts going to be available or just the video?
The video will be available. When somebody wants us to list a house, they get the whole presentation, right? But you could just take screenshots of these if you want.
And how does one go about arranging for you to help me with the listing?
They just send an email to Casey@CaseySamson.com and say, I need a price. We'll send out something that tells everybody, if you want to get this price, just send an email to Casey@CaseySamson.com, and I need, all I need is the tax record and authorization to charge on the Samson Properties, and we'll have it for you within probably 2 hours.
Thank you.
Just a point of clarification. So if I have a seller at 1.5 and I list the house at 1.3 and we get an offer at 1.3, only one, I ask that buyer to give me their highest and best Monday at noon?
Did you feel them out?
What do you mean?
Well, did you ask them any questions? In other words, I've only got one buyer. In the example I gave, I was in that. Do I take it or do I challenge them, right? And I called her and she said they're anxious, and I mirrored back to her. I said anxious with a question mark, and then she blurted out enough information to tell me I'm going to ask for highest and best. So it's a judgment call. On every deal, it's a judgment call.
I'm going to say 2 things that Casey did great there. One, he picked up the phone. And so many of us get so lazy, and we get an email we get an offer over by email, and we just never talk to the person. And we don't have a conversation so that we can do the best job of negotiating the way that Casey did to you. Yeah. Here's the other thing. If you act from a position of fear, this agent in this example, and hopefully there was somebody in the room, they were so nervous that they weren't going to get this contract for their buyers at 1.3 that they started talking, right? Somebody's more nervous than the other. Casey was confident. He was just chilling back and wanted to hear what she had to say, right? That confidence in the other person jabberboxing about how nervous they were to lose it gave Casey intel. If that person was more confident, said, we feel like 1.3 is a great offer, or 1.4 is a great offer,
they would have got 1.4.
They would have got 1.4.
Okay.
Because Casey wouldn't have felt that weakness.
We have a second choice. We're moving to our other choice.
Right. Or even if they did or didn't have a second choice, Kelly, if they had just been confident about the fact that we love the house, but we think our offer is good. Yeah. Casey would have been like, look, okay, right? I think if they had threatened Casey might have been like, well, I don't know about that threatening stuff. You go have that other house.
Right.
But I think that if they had been confident in that, we love the house, we're excited to do the deal, but we think 1.4 is a fair price, and we think we're happy with our contract, Casey probably would have taken 1.4.
If that lady, if that agent had not given me the information I was looking for, I'm calling the lender. Like, hey, man, these are your clients, just checking them out, make sure. How many contracts have you submitted? How many contracts have you prepared this for? Oh, well, I've done 5 of them. They didn't get any of them? No, they keep losing out. Thanks. Thanks. So we're going to get the information. If If the realtor won't give it to us, the lender will.
Kelly, do you have a question? Or you just got it because you started talking? Yes, ma'am.
You had a fleeting screenshot of how to ask for a reduction. Can you put it back up?
I don't think there
do
was
what?
one. No, that was a pricing model. If you wanted a pricing model from Casey. I think go up to the last one about how do you ask for a pricing model. He
It's
doesn't
real
ask
simple.
for
Just send
reductions.
an email with the. Just send an email to me at my lovely daughters.
That's how to request
My
it.
lovely daughters.
There you go.
It's
How to
daughter
re-
day. Isn't it daughter day?
How to
I'm
re-
always a day late.
How to request a pricing model is what Casey was saying there.
Right.
But as far as how to request a reduction, he hopefully does to get to that point, right? I think that'll become very clear. Now, I guess that's one question though. Let's assume you got to the mud, right? You don't like to get there very often.
What's our protocol?
But if you've gotten to, at what point is your protocol that you're going to say, look, we need to reduce our price point?
Right. So here's the protocol if we go beyond 7 days. We got to let it, don't panic after 7 days. We go back to everybody that's shown the property. Maybe they just didn't want to get in a bidding war. They like the property, but they don't want to get in a bidding war. It's like, hey, do your people like it? We go back and we call them, we work them. Week 3, we say, if possible, they would consider a home sale contingency. So we'll flip on the home sale contingency consider, and that's week 3. By week 4, any contract that's coming in is coming in $50,000 less than list price. We might as well hit the bigger buyer pool. So by week 4, the protocol is go down 50 grand and fish in a different pool. Yep.
Your slides are amazing. What software are you using to create them?
Canva.
I'm impressed you knew the answer.
I don't do it. I have people that do that. But Canva is by far the number one thing that people want to do these
And
slides.
all the stuff we do here.
And I will tell you
does
this,
with Canva
and here's
as well,
another
so.
thing, that if your agents is just over, by the way, this is the screen that we have that plugs into our computer. You set that up in front of your seller, and you're doing this Canva, and they're seeing this big screen in front of them. And first of all, they're really impressed with the big screen. It's called Echo or something like that. If you email me, I'll tell you what it is. We just plug right in.
So you do a separate screen for
Oh,
them,
yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
running it through a laptop and playing it
Right.
through
So my laptop, set up a screen. It's a big screen, and it's just a portable, and you put it up, plugs into your computer, and as I'm going through this presentation, the seller's watching every screen. And so I was like, oh, yeah. So old man told me when I was doing my seminars when I was young like Donnie, he said, listen, young man, tell him what you're going to tell him, then tell him what you told him. That's the only way to get it through. So I send it out early. They see tapes and videos of me early. I show this to them at the listing presentation, and then I send the link to the listing presentation. When it's over, I send the link to that listing presentation so they can go over it in their own time. So that's a good way for you agents to follow up with your clients when you do that. That's why I use Canva.
Hey, Casey.
Yeah.
So you've accepted a contract.
Yes.
And it's over the list price.
Yeah.
Have you ever had an issue with it not appraising?
No, because we don't have appraisal contingencies.
Yeah, he's going to do whatever he can to get that out as
Okay,
well.
gotcha.
And that part of that comes from that jet stream and being able to negotiate that out more often when you have multiple contracts. And if he's going down and in the mud and taking a not good offer, he's probably not going to have an appraisal problem, right? Because he's taking less than he wanted to begin with.
Let me just say one thing. Everybody be very careful about this, because we have been very lucky lately because the inventory has been down here and we've had control. But I'm telling you, the inventory is going like that. And that's why this is more important than ever. If you think 23% under contract is bad, wait till you see 8. Because the more inventory we have, the harder it's going to be to get that thing sold in the first week.
Yep.
So we as listing agents are spoiled, and that's why I'm trying to get out in front of it and go, hey, dude, you really got to lock this price down. We cannot just say, hey, rest on our success. We need to get out in front of this. Yeah, in the back.
Laura.
Hi, Casey.
Hi, nice hat.
Thank you, my love.
Who are you, a wizard or something?
Well, it's a scarecrow
Looks like
or
a
a
Harry
witch
Potter.
or a wizard, whatever you
Okay.
want to call it.
Okay.
However, hi. So I just have a question. When you go the 7 days coming soon, and the seller says let's test 1.2, and you think it's supposed to be 1.1, do you get that in writing, like on the listing, saying on the listing agreement?
No,
Why not?
I don't.
Why not?
I don't know. I just don't.
I mean, do you have any like pushback then, like 7 days later, saying, "Oh no, sorry, we're still going to stick with 1.2, even though you suggested 1.1."
7% of my people. Now, let me get this straight. So I went in, I told the guy, hey, it's $1.4 million. He goes, I'm not accepting a dollar less than $2 million. I went like this. I got to go. Bye-bye. I'm going to the Vienna Inn for a pop. So the best listing is the one you don't take. I always have the option of not taking the listing.
Right, but you've already taken this one.
Right. I guess so. The example is this: 1.2. We test coming soon.
Right.
We got one favorite. We got one showing. We know it's not going to be successful that weekend, and the seller looks at you and says, "I don't care. I want to go anyway."
I got those listings.
Right.
I've got them. They're the 7%.
They're the 7% that didn't sell in the first 7 days.
All right.
They're the tail, and the tail does not wag the dog. The dog wags the tail. I'm not letting them upset me, and I'm not going in the mud.
Right.
I'm not going to get in the mud with you. If you want to go in the mud, that's fine. Enjoy yourself. I'm not going down there with you.
Would you still list it?
Sure.
But
But I will tell you this.
because you're already pocket committed a little bit.
If I think that the number is 1.3 and you want to go 1.4, I'm like, nah, it's 1.3. Because I know we got to drop to 1.3. I got to go 1.35 and drop to 1.3. I'm not going to test it on 150,000 over where I think the price should be. Because then they're just.
But if they're still at a somewhat reasonable number, you'll complete the sale.
Right.
You'll complete the listing at that point because you've done all the work, you've set
Sure.
it up.
Hey.
But you've gone in with the idea saying it's a hard one, Lauren. I know some sellers are unreasonable. That's a hard one if I'm the seller to sit there and say, nope, want to go anyway. You understand that we've exposed for a week to everybody out there, and one person favorited this, and one person has set up a showing this weekend. How are we going to create a market for this property? It obviously is not at this price point. I think that's an easy one for most sellers to conceptualize, but maybe not.
Yeah, don't ask me why is it not selling. She's saying when I take it. I've already listed it.
No, she's
it's coming
saying,
soon.
do you prearrange that in your
Yeah,
listing documents?
I don't.
I
After
think the
7
more
days,
times
I'll
you
lower the
put that
price
stuff
too.
in writing, and I'm speaking for Casey here, I think the more stuff you put like that in writing, it makes it almost a confrontational situation.
Yeah.
Where Casey's explained it, right? And look, if they don't want to do it 7 days from now, they're not going to do it anyway. It doesn't matter if it says it in writing anyway. They're going to fight you tooth and nail. So putting it in writing just makes it more me against you and confrontational rather than we're on the same team together and we've decided this is the best path.
Right.
At least that's my thought.
It's a team. It's a team. And if you want to play that way, that's your business. I'm just not getting in the mud with you. That's fine.
I think it would be hard to
I got
define
plenty of
exactly
businesses.
what that panel is, right? Unless you're saying, you'd have to define what those numbers are.
You know, to be honest with you, I'm not going to force any seller to do anything.
Right.
If that's what you want, fine. My job is to explain to you the risks of where we need to be.
If you're going to be unreasonable then you're
We say the truth will set you free. I've told you the truth. You can do with it what you want.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Casey, this is regarding home inspections.
Yeah.
Do you do the home inspections for every home regardless of age of the home?
All homes.
All homes, doesn't matter.
New homes. All homes.
All homes.
All homes. A new home could have 42 things on it. I sell new homes. We do a home inspection. I can definitely show you that I got 42 items on a new home. Let's go back to that. The best I had out of the first 6 homes that we did was really a great house. I loved it. And I said, this house is so nice. We don't need a home inspection on this. And the other 6 had home inspections, and they all cleared no problem. This had a home inspection and kicked out. We got $125,000 less than I thought we were going to get. I felt horrible. I was like, I should have put my foot down and said, you need a home inspection on this house. I felt that I lost.
And I'm going to be 100% honest. I kind of bucked against this a little bit, this idea when Casey first talked about it. But when you see it through this prism of who is inspecting the property, and is that worth $500 to you? Is somebody inspecting the property that is they're both professionals, but are they looking at it from the seller's perspective on key items? Let me have it this confidence to go to market. Or are they coming at it from the buyer's perspective where they've spent the money and the buyer has to justify, the inspector has to justify the 50 or 60 or 70 things wrong to prove that they were worth the $600 they got paid? You're getting 2 different inspection reports and 2 different mindsets.
2 tones.
2 tones coming out of that thing. So that's where my mind has shifted a little bit to He's convinced me. He's good. He's convinces me of things that I didn't go into agreeing with at the beginning.
Let me just, and I'll get to your question next. Let me give you a question. We put one on for $2 million. We got $2.2 million. It was a great house. It's the best house you're going to have. But in our pre-inspection that we did, we found that the beams in the roof had broken or separated or something. So we literally had to go up there and fix all that. Can you imagine if we had a $2.2 million contract, and they went up there and found all those broken beams up in the ceiling, in the roof? The trusses were broke. And I'm like, holy shit, that would have blown this deal. And then you can't recover from that. You can't say, hey, we have beams that were broken in there and the guy walked and, but we fixed them.
So do you have the inspector re-inspect it after that show that the trusses, it was never a thing?
It was never a thing.
You don't show,
we didn't have to disclose it.
Here's the report because you fixed it.
All right. It's all fixed. Yes, go ahead.
Hold on one sec, Zach. Oh, sorry. John, go first over here.
Sorry about that.
Zach didn't see you at the mic.
I'm sorry.
No problem. Would you go as far as saying that interest rates are irrelevant? And second question, do you preview homes in your competition?
I don't. Probably should sometimes, but I don't.
Is that for the
But I don't have the time or the energy. I got an energy problem. Or the time. But I should, and I will tell you that I have my agents that I'm going to list with. They preview the properties that are on the market before we walk in. So when I walk into a listing presentation, this person's the most important person in the room because they have, more local knowledge of the listings and all that. They've been in them. And I usually got them there because they're experts in that area of that.
So he'd probably tell you you should, but his co-lister probably has.
They do.
Somebody in his team.
Yeah, they do.
He's got all of his stuff, and the other person probably
They live in that market. So if it's Oakton at 1.8, I know who lives in that, who's just knows every listing in that.
So you should. The other part was, are interest rates irrelevant?
The interest rates are not irrelevant. The interest rates are telling me where the inventory is going to go. As the interest rates fall, the inventory is going to increase, right? So the trigger is the interest rates. In fact, the trigger I use is the 10-year treasuries, because the 10-year treasuries are so sensitive that anytime there's a report comes out, they move. And the mortgage rates are based on the 10-year treasuries. They float above the 10-year treasuries. So if I want to know fast where the market's doing, interest rates, I look at that every day. First thing in the morning I look at.
I would tell you that that's all true. Casey would also probably override this. If for some reason it didn't go on trend, he's going to value, speaking for you, he's going to value inventory and what is available more than, okay, well, I see the interest rates coming down. It's talking more of a long-term play, but if he pulls up a listing today and he's got 8 active listings and 1 under contract and his success rate's 11% in that market, he's got an influx of inventory problem. That's going to be more important to his pricing model than what it's going to look like in 3 months, which is more of an interest rate and where's the future going. Today, he has a problem. Even if the interest rates tell him, oh, well, we've got this, but he goes in and he's got 9 under contract and 1 active, he's going to say, look, this market is hot. So
we can get more aggressive.
Each pricing scenario is going to dictate more what he's going to price at and how aggressive he's going to be necessarily than the interest rates and where that's telling him where he thinks the market's going. But when he's sitting in front of somebody today and how to price a home, it's more relevant what the inventory is, what's going on under contract.
This is why the pricing model is in segments, right? You have here's where it should be, and then here's where it's been and how it got here. And then the most important thing is the market segment of this is what your market looks like.
Right.
Between 800 and 900,000 within a 2-mile radius of this house, this is what the market looks like. That's more important. And every time you read something about the market going up or market going down is bullshit, right? Because markets are individual markets all over the place, and they are built on 1-mile radius and size and age and price ranges. And that's your market. So you need to look at your individual market. And that's why when you're doing pricing, I'm looking at the chart, I'm looking at the market to analyze, am I at 1.3 or 1.35? That's all I'm trying to figure out. I know we should be at one of these two. So it's like, look, I got to give you advice. Are we going to test this or do we have to test this? Because this might not even be our number. If I choose this and then drop to here and this is not our number, we're screwed. So I have to be more conservative with the weaker the market is.
Right.
Okay? So when I give a recommendation, I would say you have to start at 1.3, not 1.35, for the following reasons, A, B, C, and D.
Right.
Go ahead.
Thanks for all your advice. I've actually adopted some of your things that weren't already in my program.
Good. Thanks.
Your pre-home advice, inspection, and then preparing the home with new paint and new fixtures and new whatever. What time frame is your average getting the home prepped look
2 weeks.
like?
About 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Yeah. You got to remember, you as realtors have the power. A homeowner has no power over contractors. We hand out hundreds of thousands of dollars of business every year to them. So when I say to an electrician, the head of Vienna's Historical Society's lights are out, he's over there, right? So you realtors have the power over the contractors. So yeah, we get them in there, we get them done, we get the prices right. I don't want a seller to think, well, I got to go looking for a thing. I need to get estimates. You don't need to do anything. We're going to do that. Morgan's going to do that.
You're going to cut a check. But
you're going to cut the check.
And as a follow-up,
but we're going to give you a bigger check if you cut the check.
Some sellers have cash flow issues.
Yep.
Do you ever take on the cost and then settle up at settlement?
I do. I do. They need it. I don't want cost to be a barrier. Again, divorce and death, it's a problem. Money's tied up. If somebody has to put up $10,000 to fix up a house, I don't want them to get in a fight over it and then not get done. It's that important. I'll put up the 10 grand. You pay me back at settlement. Maybe 11.
Maybe give me 11.
Yeah.
Just to clarify one thing you said, you're at that presentation and all of your statistics show them you should be at the 135, and they say, look, my neighbor did this and I'm not taking anything less than 1.5. Do you walk?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes. If we're way off, I walk.
Some that big, yeah. Because what he knows that it's right. It's 1.3, 1.35. It's not 1.5. So he knows that it's either going to be 120 days of misery until they get to the right price and take 1.25, or they're going to stink with somebody else. They're going to make somebody else's life miserable for 90 or 120 days, and then they're going to call Casey, and he's going to list it at 1.3 and get it sold.
I give him Casey Margano's name and number.
Oh, jeez Louise.
Shit, he'll list it. Then I'll get it when it's expired. Should I not say that?
No, you're good.
Okay.
Fantastic.
I'm just kidding.
He's not kidding, but it's fine.
This has all been great, and I don't know if you want to get into this, but when you've got a seller who's so concerned about the bottom line and the net, and then you have that conversation about what to offer the buyer's agent.
Right.
How do you handle that?
2 points. That's what I offer. We have a conversation. I'll say this. We have a conversation about the commissions. I say there's been a big lawsuit. Everybody got sued. They got sued because they were price fixing at 6% and colluding to price fix at 6%. I charge 4.5. I charge 2.5 for us, and I give 2 to the selling agent. And they were also sued because they're colluding about the 2.5% to the listing agents. And I said, I'm giving 2. So I'm not concerned about any of that lawsuit. In fact, I think they proved us right. So they're going, oh, okay. And then we move on. So that's all. That's as long as that conversation lasts.
I would add one step to that. And Casey's thoughts are great, and they work for the seller because they're going to listen to that. But I would tell you that I don't think you have to, in this market, I would take the opinion that I'm just preparing the seller for what's going to come across and be prepared to take 2 points or give out 2 points. We don't have to tell the buyer's agents anything anymore, and I wouldn't, because I don't know what they're going to put on the sheet of paper, right? They might be so excited to try to win a bid, they might only ask for 1, 1.5, or 2.
That's why I have a variable
I'm not telling the buyer's
chart.
agent anything, right? Because there's not a requirement to anymore. So I'm also one that some people are kind of me, are we going to get a system where we can give out put the 2.5 or the 2 or the 3 somewhere? No, because I'm not sure that
I don't want it.
That's not doing our seller their best interest. Look, prepare the seller that they should pay the buyer's commission. It's going to come over in the offer. And if the buyer's agent asks, I'd say we are fully prepared to offer out fair compensation, put it in your offer, and we'll deal with it from there.
And the most important thing is that dynamic seller net sheet.
Because if they offer 2.5, he might do it too, right?
If it's 1, it doesn't matter whether they're asking 2, 2.5, 3, 8, whatever. As long as that bottom line beats everybody else, that's what we're worried about. So there's a dynamic, seller net sheet. It's going to tell you what your bottom line is. Walk out the door.
If it's a great
And that's what
agent and
we
they
go
make
with.
a great offer,
Yep.
Casey's going to put 2.5.
That takes the commission
he'll
kind of
tell them
out of
to do
the
2.5.
out of the equation.
But what you have to is at least have the conversation with the seller that they should be prepared to pay that, because if not, you're going to have an issue when you have a buyer agent come in and want 2 or 2.5%, and you haven't prepared your seller at all. Now you're going to have issues.
Yeah. Yes.
I would just back that up and say that I closed a deal where our seller was offering less than what the winning bid came in at for buyer agent commission, and we negotiated it with the buyer's agent and got what the seller was willing to pay, and everyone was happy.
Yeah. New world. It's a new world. All I'm trying to do is make sure that we have control over the conversation and the negotiation. I like control.
Well, Casey, this has been phenomenal stuff here. Round of applause for Casey.
Thanks, buddy.
I think that this is up on the Nest. If you guys have watched this, we had it live streamed. We'll also bundle up, put it on Samson University later. But I think we need to take all these tips to heart. And he's, from somebody that sells so many homes, been a top producer in this industry for so long, to pull back the curtains and talk about all the great things that he says at listing presentation is super valuable. So thanks, Casey, and let's all sell our listings in less than 7 days.
Let's do it. Let's go. See you. Thanks for coming out.